Well, it looks like Steve has joined us.
Yes, good afternoon. Computer issues. I think I'm good to go. I'm just opening up the presentation that I'd updated. For some reason, my Outlook is like, it keeps freezing every day. That's why I couldn't get into the meeting.
What's the folly of all this online meeting?
Steve, are you able to share your screen? Do I need to make you a host, co-host?
I should be able to. I'm just trying to get the file.
Okay. Well, you should be able to now.
Okay, this is not the one I updated the most, but it should have what we're looking for. Okay, do you see the PowerPoint?
Yes, we can see.
Okay, so today's office hour, we were going to focus on the intersection at Pontiac Trail, Moore, and Longshore. And I was just going to pull up what we had talked about previously here. So at this intersection, there's operational deficiencies. It's a, you have Pontiac Trail coming in from the north, and then you have Moore, which is a one-way northwestbound road coming into the intersection, and you have Pontiac going off to the southwest, which then turns into Swift. I also have, well, I did have the aerial. So at this intersection, as I said, you have the one-way pair to the south. You have vehicles that are traveling up more at relatively high speeds, and there's a pedestrian crossing on the north leg that pedestrians aren't absolutely visible. As you can see, there's a car parked on the right side that would block your view of a pedestrian being right there. The geometry is a little confusing. As you can see in this picture, there's a car that was coming south and is in the one-way north bound lanes. So they were heading down the one way, the wrong way. Speeds coming down Pontiac Trail have been identified as an issue. There's a train track just north of the intersection. And then there's bike lanes on Pontiac Trail north of this intersection, but there are no bike lanes along Moore or south of the intersection on Pontiac Trail. So as of late, we have been talking about a new near-term solution at this intersection. And that's what we were going to focus today's discussion on. We are open to talk about anything in the Lower Town area today, but this was going to be something we wanted to share and just discuss and get the public's view on this. And then as a team, just discuss if we see any issues. So this is a sketch that we put together, and this is the intersection we were just talking about. You have more is in the lower right. It's the two northbound lanes coming into the intersection. So today, as you get up to the intersection, there is that northbound to southbound left turn lane, as you still see here. But the right lane opens up at the intersection to provide a left turn onto Longshore. Or it has the right lane, which continues north on Pontiac Trail. In this option, we take that and just keep it as one lane northbound through the intersection. And when you get up to make a decision if you're turning onto Longshore or you're heading north, we're proposing to put a yield condition in there. Also in this option, the blue along the right side would be a bike lane that gets added. On the left side of the bike lane is a buffer area. So the travel lane to the bike lane would have an open area to provide a buffer between the two lanes. On the right side of the bike lane to the south, there's an existing parking lane, and this proposes to keep that parking lane. As the bike lane travels north up into the intersection and around the curve, the bike lane would shift over to the curb area, and it would connect to the bike lane that is just north of the intersection. As you can see at the intersection, there's a wider buffer area, and there's some green dots along the bike lane. And this would be some bollards or some delineation around the curve, just some added safety feature for the bike lane and to guide vehicles through that intersection. So in this condition, anyone coming up more is going to get a yield. The triangles on the pavement represent yield lines. So a car turning left to go south, they would yield. These yields also help out for pedestrians because as vehicles come up and get to the intersection, they're going to yield if there's pedestrians in the crosswalks. Also, anyone going northbound to turn onto Longshore, they would stop, they would yield. And then as traffic is clear, they could cross over to Longshore. The other feature here is along the southwest leg, which is Pontiac. And there's green dots there, which also are the delineators separating the two lanes. That way, if someone's coming up more and they're turning left, they're turning into their own lane, and they don't have to worry about southbound Pontiac Trail switching lanes through that intersection. The southbound Pontiac Trail would then continue south through the intersection, and they would enter their own lane. And then further south, vehicles switch lanes as needed through there. Luke, I think that covers what you were talking about in this area. Is there anything that I missed or you wanted to bring up with this option?
Thanks, Steve. That captures the idea. The only thing I would add is that this set of proposed mitigations, this is for near term. And the study does have another set of alternatives for long-term treatment for this intersection. So what the near term is, this represents something we can do very quickly and does not involve significant construction with concrete or changing the curb lines or anything for the overall intersection. So I guess what's proposed here for near term is trying to achieve benefit and still be compatible with future and more permanent features.
Yeah, the other thing, as Luke said, this is primarily just going to be pavement marking improvements, aside from adding the delineators. Is there any public questions or comments on this?
I'm the only public person here, I think. I think those additions or alterations look great. The only thing I might suggest, not a big deal, is maybe put in some wrong way signs if there aren't. I don't remember if there's any wrong way signs. There's 2 one-way streets there. It might be good to put wrong way signs if there are none there.
Right. I think there are. I think there might be a do not enter sign today. It might be set back.
There is one, but the placement of that do not enter sign, it's in the south side of the intersection near the tip. So by the time, if anyone who is not familiar with the intersection, I guess their first attention area would be the concrete island in the middle of the intersection. So there's no do not enter signs there. So by the time if they have made the prohibited turn, they would already be it will already be too late to make the correction. And from field review, that is often what we observe. So people make the wrong way turn and then make the correction by following that connection from Moore to southbound Pontiac Trail. So it does provide, with the short-term mitigation, with the change of the stop condition to yield, it does give us some opportunity to add signage in the island to address that issue. So.
Yeah, there might even be an opportunity on this pole on the left side, somewhere, closer to the decision point, to put a do not enter to go down that way. Any other comments on this one?
Yes, another feature, I guess, is the pavement markings. It's symbolized by the triangles on this slide here. Those red triangles on the pavement. So when they are installed, it's going to be a yield line, which is colored white. It's white pavement markings. The shape would be a triangle. It's a line of triangles extending from the island in the intersection all the way across the travel lane, the buffered area, and the bicycle lane. So the idea is to have markings, this yield line marking, as well as extension of the double yellow along Pontiac Trail, So hopefully these two features will also mitigate the occurrence of turning wrong way.
One thing I was wondering, and we hadn't talked about it, Luke, was in this buffer area, would you have, I wondered if you would put the triangles across there or if you would have hatching. Do you hatch your buffers?
The idea is to have buffer and also have the yield line to cover both the travel lane as well as the bicycle lane. In the buffer area, it may stay as hatching.
So normally, well, not normally, but a lot of times in the hatching area, you would have the diagonal hatching and it'd be on an angle. So if, I don't know if you can see my arrow, but it would, you know, you'd have the hatching all through the buffer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, the placement of the delineators, that's something we will have to, I guess, design in greater detail. So the intent of those is to provide protection between motorists and bicyclists. And but at the same time, in addition to protection, we still want to provide full turning movements for bicycles.
Are there any other specific items those from the public would like to discuss, or areas around Lower Town you would like to look at or discuss this further?
I think right before you jumped on, Steve, Lester had a few comments that he wanted to talk through, and I guess I'll turn it back over to Lester to, we can provide those some thinking about what we've thought through in these specific areas.
Right. One was the whole issue about, you know, 2 years ago, we went through a whole exercise around sidewalks on Traver Road near the North Side School. That didn't go very well. The options are poor there. And part of that problem is the parking from North Side ends up parking on Traver, which creates an issue right at the corner of Traver Road and Barton Road. And it's even if you did have sidewalk, it'd still be an issue because the parking there is really terrible. So I have to find out what options are being discussed there.
Okay.
Steve, this is part of the discussion 2 weeks ago during office hour number 1 there. During basically showed in Google Street View what was the potential options. So that's the section of Traver on the inbound side of Barton. The north side, that there's a slope there, so it's almost not feasible to add sidewalk using the typical configuration. So what he had presented was the option of running sidewalk on the street and have a defined pedestrian area as part of the pavement.
Yes.
And obviously that's going to impact parking.
We have talked about this in the past. Internally, this road is wide. It does allow parking on both sides. We talked about narrowing the roadway pavement, potentially potentially just allowing parking on one side, then using part of the road to either put in bike lanes, or if you wanted to separate out the bike lane and potentially put a walkway. We thought that there was enough room that you had options there. How wide? It's roughly 31 feet across with an 8-foot parking lane on one side and 11 to 12-foot lanes. You know, it leaves a little bit of space. Yeah, where was is it the north side? That was the biggest. Well, you got it on both sides. But we did see people walking down the streets when we were out doing our field reviews. And from what we've seen with parking on street, I think you could potentially just have parking along one side. But this is an area we identified as needing pathway or sidewalks. What were some of the other topics that were brought up?
Well, you know, that's, we actually suggested as an alternative to what the city was proposing, which was to put sidewalks in on both sides and take away all the street parking was one option, or to try to put the sidewalks in the right of way outside the street and then have to modify our properties, which we didn't want the city to do. So both those options were non-starters for us. Again, we did suggest maybe a sidewalk on one side in the street to keep street parking on at least one side of the street. So that's probably the best option for putting in a, you know, quote unquote sidewalk. I guess, you know, how much of the street would you take up if you put in a sidewalk there? Is it 5 feet for the sidewalk and a 3-foot buffer? So it'd be about 8 feet. Is that correct?
Yeah, you could do that. I'm just looking at further up the road where there is sidewalk and there's parking on both sides. So if you took, typically you give them about 8 feet for the parking lanes. So then I was just looking at, you know, what did that leave for roadway here? And it's close to 20 feet. So you roughly have vehicles using 10-foot lanes through there. So if there's options where you don't have to fully provide the width of the lanes, and you can have narrower streets. You could narrow this street down altogether and have a sidewalk and then even a grass buffer. That would be more of a reconstruction option. But a simpler option would be some sort of delineation along the road that provides an on-street walkway. And like what you said, with a 5-foot sidewalk and a bit of a buffer, you may want to have the delineators to separate that path from the roadway.
Yeah, and that's a possibility. So then you just put whatever the buffer is. It could be a series of like plastic, you know, markers or something like that, which I don't know if that might look a little hideous, but or some kind of curb or something to keep the pedestrians away from the cars, or cars away from the pedestrians. So I'd be interested in options around that. We also, another option is put in a speed bump coming down the hill on Traver. There's a couple up the street, but none there. You know, the citizens could ask for that, and I think it would probably be approved, but we haven't done that yet.
You said there are some currently?
Yeah, it's interesting, there's some to the east on Traver, east of Barton. There's two, I think there's two, you know, speed tables, as you call them. And then further up on Traver to the west, there are a couple, and but none down closer to the school. And it seems like where the school's at would be the place they're most needed.
Okay. Luke, I don't think there's any in the Lower Town study area. This is just off to the east where these ones are located. Do you?
Or toward downtown, there are traffic calming features there as well. That's to the west of John A. Woods. So yeah, the city does have a traffic calming program. So Lester, just, you know, I guess the process there is to the best way to handle this is to make a petition in the traffic calming program and have that process to address the need for speed bumps. And during the last office hour, there was some discussion about the crosswalks for crossing Traver near John A. Woods. And the concern was about travel speed on Traver and the visibility of pedestrians in the crosswalk. So because of the vertical curvature there, the location of the existing crosswalk, where Steve is showing on the screen here, is not. Sometimes there are visibility concerns. So users, you know, according to the feedback, tend to cross further west of the crosswalk. So the suggestion was to seek mitigations of that issue. So Lester, does this sound like a concern that you would agree as well?
Yeah, you know, I don't use that crosswalk up the street very much. I'm more concerned, and I think the biggest concern are students walking to school along Barton and having to cross Traver Road, with Traver Road being used as a parking lot for the school for drop-off. And that's really dangerous. And even with sidewalks there on Barton, it's dangerous for students crossing Traver to go up adjacent to the school to reach the school. Yeah, right there. So this left and right side here is a parking lot on both sides with parents, you know, late for work. They're coming in there. There's cars double parked, you know, and then the cars are trying to find a place to park. There's a lot of traffic on Barton Road, which complicates things. And so students just crossing that crosswalk is a real problem. And one of my neighbors who lives across the pond from me, their kids walk up there. He almost got hit by a car right there. So he relayed, and he works with Department of Transportation. He said that intersection is crazy. So as long as you allow parking near the corner of Barton and Traver, parking on Traver, that is a hazard. It's gonna always be a hazard, and someone's gonna get killed.
Yeah. What is this sign? Yeah, there's no restriction now on parking at the corner here.
Yeah, and some ideas were floated on how to do that, like, maybe create a bump out so you can't park there, or, just put in, I don't know, you can, again, put in some of those little plastic things like you did on Barton Road, just west of Pontiac Trail. Right on the corner there, there's a few of those, so you can't park close to the corner. So an option like that might be, what it takes. It wouldn't be expensive to put in, but at least keep the corner free.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a good point. So let's jot it down. Yeah, I agree that bump outs would be a good option here. And then for school peak drop off and pick up, I guess that's something the city and the school district can work together as well, trying to explore if there are other options to more comprehensively solve the issue.
Yeah, if the bump outs are put in, I'd make an exception to allow bicycles to pass, because otherwise, because what's true on the Pontiac bump out, the little plastic things, a bike can't pass through there, a car can't pass through there. Of course, you don't want that, but a bike can't either. So now you're forcing the bike over into the car lane, and that's not safe.
Okay.
Well, I have a separate meeting to go to, so I have to leave. So thank you for the opportunity to comment.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Yeah, I believe we also have Chris here. I don't know if Chris has any comment.
Hey, thank you. Sorry, I joined late, so I was kind of listening in, but I'm interested in the area near it's like North Division there, where it merges into Broadway and the bridge there, and some of the, I think the comments in the survey that went out a while ago about that. I just that whole area just needs work, but I'm not totally sure what the solutions are.
I think you guys talked a lot about that in the last office hour.
Not a whole lot.
No.
We only toward the end of it, we were moving past the Broadway bridge toward the downtown side of it. So it was more of the last 5 to 10 minute discussion. So we definitely go into this in greater detail.
Okay. Yeah, we've spent a lot of time looking at this as well, and we more recently have updated and looked at different alternatives in this area. We even have more updated exhibits than what's shown here. But what we're looking to do, and because you're familiar with the area, this is I think the highest crash area in the Lower Town Study area. You have high speeds coming down, heading northbound on Division. There's a lot of streets coming in together. We have ped crossings through here. There's a ped crossing right on the curve. The bike lane, as you can see in this bottom left picture, just abruptly ends.
Yep. I'm familiar with that one intimately.
So I don't know if we have it in here or not, but we had put together we had put together some new exhibits that showed, since I don't have it here, I'll try to just walk through it. But as you're coming north on Division, what we were looking to do is to, instead of, let me go to, you can see this Google Earth. So currently, as you're coming up Division, you have parking on the left side, then you have 2 through lanes and a bike lane. So as we just talked about, the bike lane ends, and then the parking on the left side ends, and then you form a left turn lane, which the left turn lane takes you onto, is that Detroit?
Yep.
Yeah, Detroit. So what we've been looking at, and as you get further into the intersection, there's a lot of different options of what you could do, but what we were looking at is something that you could carry through all the different alternatives, is to carry this bike lane, keep it going all the way up to near the bridge. Then taking this parking lane and just extending it almost all the way up to Detroit, making 2 lanes on Division, carry that up through the intersection with Detroit. At Detroit, you don't have a dedicated left turn lane. You just would have a taper. There's not a ton of cars that make that movement, so somebody could slow down in the through lane and just use this taper to turn onto Detroit. We haven't fully figured out how to do all these improvements, but the bike lane, as you get up closer, you would need some sort of transition out of the bike lane up onto the pathway that goes across the bridge. The issue with that, though, is you're now bringing high-speed bikes into the area where you're going to have people walking. This option here showed off closing the ramp.
Okay, are you, you might not be sharing. I'm following where you're.
What are you seeing right now?
Just sort of like the grid of people on the call. Make sure it's not me.
Oh,
I think you're sharing, Steve. Chris, are you on your phone?
Yeah.
Try swiping to a different screen view.
Yeah.
You might be able to.
Use here. So it was showing. Ah, there we go. Sorry. Thank you. Sorry. Yeah. Yeah, I know right where you mean, right? Because with the grade of the hill there and everything.
yeah.
Okay.
So the bike lane is the green, and then as you come up around the curve, then trying to get them across the bridge. I don't know that you want to keep, most bikers are not going to want to stay in the traveled lane going across that bridge. So it was trying to figure out a way to transition from a bike lane onto the path at the bridge.
I see. Sure.
Without having the bikes getting off too high speed and then interacting with people that are walking in the area.
Yeah. Is the overall plan still to keep the bridge 4 lanes, 2 in each direction?
Yes. So far, we're not really talking about any lane reduction on the bridge.
Okay.
The discussions are focusing on the intersection area.
Got it. Okay. That well, I can always dream. I would love for that just to be, you know, 2 lanes with a buffered bike lane, but I understand that not on the table currently. But the reason I bring that up is just because I'm fairly comfortable as a vehicular cyclist, and you know, I'll make a decision kind of in the moment whether I want to stay on a road or if there is, you know, like an option like that here, like sometimes it's friendlier and, you know, more scenic to be over on the pedestrian sides of the bridge, which, you know, which are physically separated from the road traffic. But then sometimes, you know, if there's not a lot of traffic on the road, I'm perfectly fine staying in the right lane and making sure it's visible and flow of traffic. So I'm kind of torn about that. I see what you mean too about merging the bike lane traffic then in with the sidewalk also, you know, brings its own challenges too, if I was following you right.
Yep. So what you're seeing in this image, the black part is where we had a number of different options of closing off different roads just to simplify the intersection. The less roads you have coming into it, the less conflict points, the less opportunity for crashes. So we were looking at just varying options of closing off different roads, but then when you do that, how much is that impacting vehicular traffic? How much is it, you know, we're trying to solve issues for the bikes, the peds, and also ruin life for the vehicular traffic. It's a balancing act to a degree. Do you have any thoughts on what you would like? Well, you have already said you would like a buffered bike lane across the bridge. I think the volumes coming across the bridge make that difficult to reduce to 2 lanes. And there's also the new development planned for this area.
Right. Yeah. That's which is exciting, right? But then, right, we'll also, you know, bring some more activity there. I mean, I guess, you know, I kind of like what you're showing there with the yellow. So that's kind of like the bike lane merging in with the sidewalk.
Mm-hmm.
I think, I mean, that definitely makes sense to me, because I think that's the challenge of the bike lanes, especially, you know, that when you're showing, you know, in the earth view that just ends, you know, end of division, and then you're kind of left, you know, again, some cyclists can fend for themselves or traffic. When there is a lot of traffic, especially during rush hours, that, you know, that becomes less attractive. So something like that you've got there, I mean, that feels to me, and just given, you know, that space and given what you're saying, that the bridge is going to stay, you know, 4 lanes, you know, that seems, you know, like a good way to sort of, I guess the main thing is just keeping the continuity of the route, that the route just doesn't disappear and you're kind of fending for yourself. Just more that, like, okay, the route was on division, it's coming up around this curve, it's coming up the bridge, and then now the route moves on to, you know, to the wide sidewalk there on the bridge, and then continues on.
If I may ask a question, the concern about the bike lane on northbound division, providing a ramp connection to the shared path over the bridge, about the conflict, the potential conflict between the bicyclists and the pedestrians, that's something raised by staff here. Is that a concern that you could help us validate, or you think that that should not be a concern?
Then that's a great question. I mean, I can think of when I've gone through there, both in a vehicle and on a bike, and occasionally on foot, kind of following the pink line there. I do that on occasion, not as frequently. I mean, I always feel like on a bike, it's easier for, at least for me, that if I see somebody crossing the street or something, like, unlike a lot of drivers, I'm more, I can deal with that situation. I can say, okay, yeah, they're crossing. I'm gonna have to slow down, and I can't just assume that I can blow through here, because I'm even if I'm in the bike lane. So, so when I've gone through there and people have been crossing, I felt like there's enough room for us to negotiate and for everybody to get through. Now that said, I do feel that there is a conflict more between, motor vehicle traffic and people trying to make that journey on the pink line. I think that's really where that if you're on foot and you're, it feels like even with the accommodations that are there and, and the signs dividing the lanes there, it's pretty intimidating. It feels like you're kind of running the gauntlet to make that path there. So I guess I'm less concerned about the bike pedestrian conflicts, because I feel like those can be handled pretty well. But whereas it's more the vehicle pedestrian conflict there is really the concern for me.
Yeah, that's much appreciated. Yeah, we did receive a set of very clear recommendations from a group of residents, including this area. So the one item in that set of suggestions was not very clear. I'm going to follow up with them, but I still want to get some feedback from you. That's about non-motorized crossing facilities at this intersection. There's some concern about the existing crosswalks do not provide, I guess, the best route for connections between the two sides of Broadway and Beakes and Division. So with that pink highlighted route, I guess, or what is the more desired connection route in this area?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I agree. I mean, I remember when the crossings did go in, and it was definitely, and I think there'd been some work there around that intersection. I'm trying to remember when that was, and I remember like, oh, good, like okay, there's more crossing options that are designated. I think some of it's the nature of that intersection that again that and some of this is just bad behavior that I think could be handled through traffic calming, is that people treat, Division is the northbound expressway for a lot of people, and they're taking northbound Division to, eastbound Plymouth. And so it just sort of, I think there's some bad behavior because it's a little bit overbuilt, and it is built like a freeway in a lot of people's minds. And the same, southbound, obviously, with the split off to Beakes. So some of that, I think traffic calming in all directions that reduces, the environment shouldn't be, hinting to drivers that, hey, you can go 55 here. This is a throughway. Instead, it should be like, this is a dense urban area, and you're gonna have to slow down and watch out and cross. So that's just sort of my general feelings on that intersection. Specifically to what you're saying, I mean, I do wonder if maybe like that crossing there, there was pink on the other slide, and looking at it, there with the crosswalks, I do wonder if they, oh yeah, perfect, thank you. If I wonder if either moving them north, or south or something. I'm trying to figure out kind of where would be like the least, reduce the amount of conflicts, but also not making it completely inconvenient for somebody on foot that just wants to get across there. I think that's, that's always the challenge, that it's easier for a motor vehicle engineer to say that a pedestrian can just, travel half a mile, down the street to cross the boulevard or something, right. And that's, so I'm sensitive to that not just, moving it way out of the way, but also knowing just that this little vortex here is challenging. Plus you've got like the U-turn there from, sorry, I forget, what's the street that goes down? Mary there. Yep, exactly. And so that, that adds another element of traffic merging in coming from Mary, and then coming around that curve right where the crossing is. So I guess I don't have any answers, but I do wonder if moving those crossing points, either further south, and or north or both, would help. I'm trying to think there too with that, if there's any chance for maybe a different type of underpass with the bridge there too. I'm trying to remember how much space there is there. Obviously, Depot Street goes under there. That's a little bit further north there. I just, or conversely, I'm trying to think with the grades there. I mean, I'm not a fan of like, oh, we'll just make a pedestrian overpass and then force the pedestrian to go up 3 flights of stairs and then have to come down. And obviously those are expensive and usually cost prohibitive too. But if there was a convenient way to do a flyover or something like that was pedestrian friendly. Yeah, because you've got sort of the grade there going above Mary. And obviously, some of that was done with kind of like, near the Gandhi Dancer and sort of the like closer to the Amtrak station.
Got you. Yeah, thank you. That's super helpful.
Okay.
Yeah, among the considered mitigation measures, I guess one thing Steve hasn't mentioned is there are some consideration about adding either RRFB, the flashing beacons, or Hawk, the type of signalized control to protect the crossings. So that may go hand in hand with some of the geometry changes he has talked about.
Okay. Yeah, I'm always a fan of those. I mean, I think those help and they make it very clear. I know there's a lot of complaints about the the other crossing points, that this and a lot of this is just an attitude that somebody in a vehicle doesn't have to stop unless there's a giant flashing red light, yelling at them to stop. I mean, I don't think that's true. It shouldn't be true, but I understand that some people behave that way. So when you can do RRFB or Hawk, that always helps. That makes it like clear that this this is a crossing. You do have to stop.
Mhm.
Right.
Okay. Before this hour is up, is there any other thoughts you have, Chris, or any other areas?
There are, but I know that you're about to wrap here, and I'll take a look at the other areas listed there. I mean, I'm primarily a cyclist in these areas, but I do also drive them, and I just overall I appreciated the surveys that have gone out about this and your continued engagement in the office hours. This is very helpful. I'm going to try to get some of my other fellow cyclists to participate as well. And I know that there's not a lot of easy answers there, but I appreciate that you guys are really looking at this with a lot of thought and care, and so just keep that up. It is appreciated.
Okay, thank you.
And I'll mention that we're going to do at least 2 more of these, one in 2 weeks, and then 2 weeks after that. So there is more opportunity to weigh in. Steve, do we have a specific intersection or topic we're looking at the next one?
No, we have not decided. Anything's on the table. As you saw today, we started with one intersection and talked about, whatever people come on and have ideas on, we're open to hearing. So.
One thing I would add is that while we're discussing a variety of alternatives for all these intersections in the study area, I still want to highlight the one for more Longshore and Pontiac Trail. At the beginning of the presentation or discussion, that set of solutions Steve has discussed, that's something we're thinking about deploying this season. So if there's any suggestions, any comment about the treatment at this one shown on the screen here, I guess either for Chris or anyone who will be watching this as the recorded session, feel free to reach out to me. Steve, if you don't mind, you can show my contact somewhere on the screen as well.
Yeah, no, I think that I did catch, I think most of that, and that looks good to me. I didn't have as much of a opinion on that one, but I like the buffered bike lane area there too, and the sort of the triangle, kind of mitigating the confusion at that intersection. So that definitely looks good to me.
Yeah. Yeah, if you don't find it, my email and phone number, everything is on the project website.
Sure.
It's easy to remember, it's a2gov.org/lowertown.
Yep. Perfect.
Yeah, I'm not seeing it in here.
Yeah, no worries. It's easy to find on the webpage.
Okay.
Great. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
All right. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great weekend.
Yeah, you do the same.
I'll stop this and see you all at the next one.
All right. Thank you.
Okay.
See you.
Thanks, Eric.